This is Voodoo Forest. That's one of my prized possessions. Touched by the man himself. Hold on. Roll dice. Blue things today. Fine. But this one, what are we doing in this one? Lady Annika, the Thirsting Blade. Which I didn't use. I used a big wibbly blade from the Empire stuff. What my mate Ed gave me. Yeah, so that smushed in amongst some Blood Bowl Elf High and Eagles. Anyway, yeah, choppy, put it together. Yeah, sketching the blue tack, some pinning, and a bit of basic green stuff. I'm no wizard of green stuff. And as I often say, it doesn't matter half the time if there's a mistake or a bad bit. Cover it with a greebly, put some texture on it, call it battle damage. Fuck it, it's going to be 2 foot away on the table, and you may well be half cut. Anyway, have a slurp of tea and go on it. Lots of tea. Stay hydrated out there, nerds. The Thirsting Blade. Yeah, sorry, the Thirsting Blade. Have you liked and subscribed to this nonsense yet? I'll remind you later. But do it now. And then do it again. No, hang on, because that would turn it off. No. Anyway, so look, it's pretty basic, eh? Half a dozen bits. What we've got there. I'm going to use the majority of this. It's all about that skirt and the torso. The arms are perilously skinny on this model. And as you can see, the rest of my warband all sit on these little hexagons. I just love them. They're really ideal for games where you've got to lay a model on its back or on its front, as you do in Mordheim, for different stages of stunned. I don't know why Blood Bowl models aren't on hexagonal bases. It would be really handy. But anyway, very dynamic poses from these Blood Bowl models. And you stick swords and daggers, axes and headbands and daft haircuts from Necromunda warbands and old Empire spears and stuff, and you get a really dynamic bunch. So first things first, let's have a look at that leg that I'm going to replace with this one, because that's just about the straightest one. It's kind of doing the same thing. Oh, that was easy. Usually takes hours to find them. So yeah, did not skip leg day. Pretty chunky. Shall I put the heel on it? No, let's not do that. So there's the skirt. Just held together, a little bit of blue tack, because as you will see, I will glue it together very briefly, just a tiny bit of glue, just because it made holding everything that much easier. There's the leg. Have I talked about these little sanding pads? Sometimes you get them from nail art studios, or you can nick them off of a significant other that's got beautiful nails. They come in very fine grits. Some of them are very coarse. You probably won't use them for anything but, you know, the chunkiest. Sanding back the most volume. But what you can see there, I also do is I cut them into little bits, just for those hard to reach areas. So I've got a few of them in different sizes and grits, which I find very useful. This is interesting. Just the way the parts go together there is quite novel. You've got that step on that moulded part there, and then where the two parts join, they've got a similar design there. I'm going to use the good old skinny and thick glues on this. So just, like I say, just a tiny bit there, just to hold them together briefly. If anything, I put too much on there. I could have done with far less, but it's difficult to break old habits. So yeah, just lightly tacking those two bits together so that I can work on this leg. I offer it up very quickly and I realise I don't need cut off the glute. Nice bit of bum goes there, and then what I'm doing is looking to get that thigh going in at the right angle so that it makes sense. You know, I wouldn't ordinarily do my hobby on a block like that, on these 123 steel blocks, but it's handy to get it on an angle to show you, point it up at the camera so I can see and you can see. So there we go, just offering it up, looking at the angles, thinking about how I'm going to do it. That's the silhouette that I'm going for. It turns out the foot goes a little bit higher, so we end up with a step, which is in fact the height of the base, whatever that may be, 4 or 5 mil, probably not that much, 3 or 4. So I'm going to use the thick glue here, sprue goo, you may have heard it referred to, and it's basically when you get halfway through your pot of Tamiya thin glue, drop a whole bunch of sprue cut-offs in there, they'll dissolve your thicker poly cement, which runs a little bit. You know, you can adjust it to taste. If you want it a bit thicker, put more bits in. Want it a bit thinner, too late. Whoops, put a bit more of your other one in. That's what I mean. So there you go, just propped that up. Bit of blue tack again just to hold that in place so I can point it at the camera, and then I'll work on something else while that sets up, while the glue hardens there. Lovely. Right, quite pleased with that for now. This is the torso. Nothing much to speak of there. I trimmed them off, I tidied them, I glued them together, and I'm just gluing them. These two parts fit together quite nicely. Nothing to report. Crack on. Go for it. This model's just gorgeous. This super wasted, corseted waist that I'm almost exaggerating even further. With the skinny arms, it makes her look skinny. But with the big foofy arms that I end up putting on it, makes that waist look even smaller by contrast. This is a sister's head, one of the newer plastic ones. I just like the stern look. I'm just looking at how it's going to fit and thinking of how much of the hair I'm going to have to cut off. So just on that blue tack so I can hold it for the camera, because as you see it's extremely difficult to get it in focus and not fuck it up with super sharp God hand snippers. They are called God hand because they are a religious experience. They are dreamy. They are like a knife through hot butter. It's just so little resistance. They do a lovely job. So as you see, I work my way around there, and then I'm just tidying up with, again, a super sharp knife. Yes, I am using a super sharp knife very close to my fingers, but because it is so sharp, I get a very controlled cut, and I can put very little pressure. If you put in very little pressure, it's not going to fly across the room and take your finger off on the way. If you're using a blunt knife and you slip, you're slipping with loads of pressure behind it to make a cut. With a sharp knife, you're not. Anyway, there you go. Loads of fingers, no cuts. Yet, touch wood. So again, this is my super duper tiny drill bit. This is the size of a paper clip. These are electronic PCB cut, drill bits. And they're really nice. They are perilously thin and they snap like a carrot. You get them in packs of 10. Put them down gently, not like that, because if it rolls off the table, it will stick in your foot and snap. But there we go. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm just tidying that up. I'll have a sip of tea. I'll stay hydrated. So yeah, there you go. Bit of a haircut on the back, which pushes up against that fur. I'll offer it up. Again, very difficult to show you. Yeah, backwards. Yeah, nose goes forwards. Nose forward. There we go. So you can almost see what's going on there. I think I end up doing a couple more trims just to get it bang on. But you know, a bit of a twist. Very similar to the original. I think the original's looking down a little bit more for that spooky over looking through the eyebrows look. This lady's a lot more ballsy and is looking straight at you. Fuck off, sunshine. I'm going to do you with my big sword. My big thirsting blade. said the actress to the bishop. So again, a bit more of the thicker glue, and then trying to get it in focus. Fuck it, whatever, drop it, bollocks. It's never happened before. You've never dropped a bit, have you? There we go. On it goes. Finally. What does everybody want? What does everybody need? Head. Al Snow. Philosopher, wrestler, funny motherfucker. There we go. A little bit of glue pissed out the bottom, but that's fine. We just push it to where we need it, and it'll fill the gaps. And then there's a big bit of fluff stuck on the other side of the head. We'll get rid of that. There we go. Proper up on those sanding blocks. You can see those are the coarser ones. Very rarely use those. So this is the original Blood Bowl hand. The right hand from the model with that leg. And just looking at that, I quite like the idea of quite a beefy arm hanging down. And then I was going to cut off some of the roughs from the Empire shoulder pieces and put them on there. And that's the sword I fancy using. I've used a couple of those throughout the rest of the warband. Again, quite a chunky arm that. But you'll see we get round that. So this is the one of the two poses I had in mind, was this arm reaching out, holding the hilt of the sword in a casual, like commander standing back and shouting orders, stoic pose, angling the sword along the line of that leg that's poking out. Now this is one of the arms I actually end up using. These are really great, these shapes, because they're so easy to replicate with green stuff. So you can angle them with your kit bashes. I'll show you a couple of the others there. So where that arm has obviously come back a little bit further from the body, in much the same way that I end up doing on Lady Annika here, I can then fill that gap between the shoulder and the arm. But you can see, just blue tacked in place, that's what we're going to get. The hand now can hold the handle of the sword rather than that kind of slightly awkward round the hilt, which was quite nice, quite casual. But you'll see the other idea with the position of the sword with this arm also works as well. So there you go, that's the angle I was looking for, the leg and the sword kind of in parallel. And then I can move the arm around to position. So now this is the idea for the other hand. Just the shape of that there, all sitting on the hip, like strong pose, casual as fuck, holding a Zweihander ready to chop. So there we go, just looking at the other arm, it's got a nice shape. Now you'll notice that is a right hand, but if you lop that hand off, it's just a curve of an arm. I can now splice in that left hand. I can now splice in that left Blood Bowl hand and put that on the hip. So I'm just scratching up that rough there, just so that the blue tack gets a nice grip on it. Keying it up, you'll often hear me say, and you sand something before you paint it, or you prime it before you paint it, so it's a slightly rough texture, and the stuff gets a grip. And obviously that works for the blue tack as well. So now that I've got that arm on there, I'm like, well, okay, we've got a hand on the hip. How about we go the other way? We've still got that line with the sword. But how about the sword goes back up? Like it, it's strong, but I think the sword then is so close to the fur of the collar, or feather, I'm not sure, that I don't think I want to deal with that much sculpting. I'd like to keep them further apart. But what we've got is a lovely position now with the pommel of the sword, which isn't actually on this sword, but I'll splice one in later. I can sit that sword out at the other angle, mimicking the angle of the other leg that's hidden in the robes. I'll just blue tack that in and I'll show you in a second if it sticks. So now we've got a nice graphic pose there. Big sword energy. Yes. This lady means business. Happy with that now. I think I'm going on this direction. I'm definitely going to use this hand on the hip. That's just really strong. So what I'm going to do is drill into that sleeve there. And much like I've done on this, you can see the colour difference, those two parts there, the hand and the wrist. And I use this same technique. So rather than just cutting there, which is the temptation, trim away the bit you want and you've got a nice handle. Again, sharp blade, it's easily done. So if you're nervous, trim on the blue tack. But as I say, I trust the sharpness and I'm only using a tiny bit of pressure. I'm just going to shave away, shave away, shave away. Make a nice slim wrist that hasn't got that big armour panel on it. And then when you've done that, cut it to length. You've just got a nice big handle to work with. Big. Nice handle to work with, relatively speaking, while you work on this tiny, tiny part. So again, a few more trims, and then a tiny bit of a sand just to smooth off those flat, faceted cuts. And then a bit of the sprue goo, thick glue. And we'll push the two parts together. I'm just showing you this because it's a fucking minor miracle that it's all in focus. You have any idea? I've only got to move 3 or 4 mil up or down, left or right, and I'm completely out of focus and completely out of shot. This stuff is hard. I'm a fucking hero. Shut up. What's in this tea? So there we go. This is the other half. I don't often do this, but if you're at all nervous about lining something up, drilling out your gun barrels, make a little cross on the end, and then it gives your drill bit something to find a spot. Because when you turn in that drill bit, it wants to wobble around and wander. If you've got a cross, it will go where the two meet in the path of least resistance. Now again, this is just while I've got the drill bits out, I'm doing putting the handle of the sword on with that nice pommel. Drilly, drilly. So I do the small drill bit, and then just to give it a little arris, a little cup for the glue to bite into, I go again with the slightly larger bit. This is the Gorilla Glue gel, so it's the slightly thicker one. It just means you can put it on the pin, it doesn't run everywhere while you put that in place. Lovely. So, pretty pleased with that. I'll glue it up now. That was a dry fit, you might have guessed by the way it just fell off. So, little blue tack there as a handle, just makes life easier when you're positioning. You can get your fingers further away and see what you're doing. You can see what I'm doing with the camera. You see the body, the way those two halves, the front and the back, go together. There's a bit of a recess thing, which is quite handy. You could almost put the pin all the way through and have an action figure. Lovely. Glue that up. That's sitting there nicely, and we'll work on the other side. So, just giving it a tiny little drill there, just piercing the surface, and then looking at the angle, so drawing a line through that torso, and then getting, as you see, I start there, and then slowly, slow as not to snap the drill bit, drill that angle through the body and into the meat of that arm. And then look at that, lovely. It's a shame it's the back, because that's a really nice shape. I like the way those billow backwards. There we go, thick glue, and this is why we use the thick glue, because that was a bit risky. Could have just dropped it all over it if it were thinner, but that gel stuff is just great. Got that arm on, got that sword in place, a little bit of blue tack just to hold that straight and position it beautifully in that little pocket we've got at the top of the thigh. So green stuff, I'm no wizard at this. but you know, I've learnt a few things. Lick the blade, that's the blunt one, but you know, wet the blade with something, bit of sponge on your bench, use your wet palette, the corner of that, whatever you like, and then push it in place. This is an old dental tool, you can get them on Cheap and Cheerful, and it's just a teeny tiny butter knife, and I'm just shoving that in place, and then pulling away the bit I don't want. So rough as you like, just pushing it in place, and then making kind of the volume, the major shape in that kind of what's the word? The concentric rings that run round, and then do the pleated lines that run the length of the arm. So I'm doing the horizontals and then the verticals. Pretty much every time I take that tool away from the model, it goes in my gob and returns to the model with a little bit of saliva on it so that it doesn't stick as much to your green stuff. So this is quite slow and laborious, but you know, this stuff does take a while to go off. Don't rush yourself. If you feel it going really wrong, scrape it out, get another bit of green stuff and go again. You'll notice the green stuff in the background. I tend to roll it out into a sausage because it's an exothermic reaction. If it's in a big ball, there's more of it in close proximity and it will heat up. And as it heats up, as the reaction goes off, the reaction will go off quicker because of the heat generated. If you roll it out a bit, there's less of it, it's going off a little bit slower. So the theory goes. Just popping a little bit more glue in the back there, I saw it moving around a bit more than I'd like. And I'll just let that set up. And I'll go around the other side. I don't know if you've noticed, I've put it on this base. This is just temporary. It kind of does what I'm after. And also, the hexagonal bases don't sit in the hobby holders very well, but the round one does. There is a lot of this. It's because I'm showing you because it's in focus, and I'll probably edit somehow. Probably edit that out. Right, another big blob. Shove that in the other side, which hopefully has gone off a bit more than the other one did because it was moving around quite a bit. Once the green stuff has gone off, obviously that'll be a nice solid lump, and the glue will then help out. You can always put a tiny bit of thin super glue in there if it does start to wobble. I've dropped it a couple of times whilst setting my lights up and the cables grab on things. She's bounced off the desk a couple of times and seems to be okay. I have noticed obviously since I've shot it on the turntable and looked at it on the big screen as I edit, there's loads of mould lines and stuff I've got to scrape off. So yeah. Like I say, I'm just banging this one out quick before I go away for the month, and I'm away from my cameras and gear and blah blah blah. I'm doing up a flat in Nottingham for a friend, and like I say, it's a bit of a jolly. It does mean my Golden Demon entry for Warhammer Fest is going to be, my painting time's going to be cut in half. I'm going to get like a week and a half to do it, so I've completely wandered out of shot there. I wonder what I'm doing. Look amongst yourselves. Just while that's out of shot, you could like and subscribe. You know, go, oh, listen to this idiot, he's quite entertaining, and share that nonsense with your friends. Once upon a time, there was a man called John Blanche, and he drew this banging artwork. Much of it he used for Mordheim, that nutty old game from 1999. Now, I didn't play it back in the day, but I certainly enjoyed the artwork on those occasional white dwarfs that I picked up. It's got the odd skull in it, and yeah, I won't be putting any claws. This is inspiration. I think they might get grittier as I paint them, but you know, we've got the Realm of Chaos, Slaves to Darkness, Lost in a Damn books. Been thumbing through them for 30 years.
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate the way that piece started there. Stop laughing. That's puerile. Yeah, she's got a massive knob. It's unfortunate, but we'll smooth that out. So back to that butter knife shaped piece, just pushing it so that it grips against the existing cloth, and then with the larger spatula shape, just dragging it, pushing it in and dragging it down so that it conforms to the shape of the existing plastic. More of the same, more of the same. Then the silicone shaping tools, moistened, and then just smoothing along there, backwards and forwards between the tools, smoothing an area, and then sharpening up the hard crease and softening it again. All of this will get a sand later on in the process. Sometimes you can't really see what you've got until you've primed it, and then you give it another little sand and then prime again. So the final beauty shots that I get at the end might not be fully finished, but like I say, I've got to crack this one out, get the broad strokes done. I might take her away with a postage stamp sized piece of sandpaper and tidy it up of an evening. But sorry, a little bit out of focus on that bit, but you can just see I'm slightly I'm tightening up each little section as each tool comes to hand. So this one's got more of a chisel tip, so I'm working on the deeper, harder lines in the bottom of the creases, whereas the other one was good for the rounder shapes in at the bottom of the folds of the fabric. And then again with this one's good for just flattening it off across the top of the thigh. So it's pretty close there, just rubbing off the end of a file just to get the loose little bits that have pushed away, and it's pretty close. Right, let's clear the deck a little bit, get her in focus. Yeah, quite pleased with that. Like I say, any imperfections can be tidied up with a bit of sandpaper once it's fully cured and that much harder. Right, let's get the spinny what's it out and wiggle some lights around and that kind of thing. Do like those sleeves. The silhouette is amazing, really pleased with that. The base is a bit skew if the flatness of the robe doesn't look terrible, but I think it'll look better on a wide base. Not that that would be very good for gaming. But there you go. Pretty chuffed with that one. Tell us what you think, what you'd have done different. Have a fight, call me a twat, all the usual stuff down in the comments. And all the usual waffling and bullshit, outtakes, and what's going on. Nonsense about the cat after the outro. Later!
Get on with it. Shut up, get on with it. Shut up, get on with it. Yeah, shut up, get on with it. Make ourselves a Tory. A vampire. Yeah, that's my new, just got that to go over my chair so I don't muck it up. It's made of, old bus seats. That's nice, isn't it? Bus and tube. Yeah. Yeah, the cat, I guess he's not going to be in this one. He's been missing for 43 days. And now, Saturday, Sunday, Monday I go away. He comes back, little prick. So, he's going to be working double overtime, like lining up the next videos as soon as I get back. Oh fuck! As soon as I get back, I'm painting my Golden Demon entry in 2 weeks. No pressure. Never entered. I'm not good enough, but you got to try. Otherwise, you never learn, I guess. Can I get 100 hours on a single model? You know that trike that I built? You seen the trike? Old school squat trike with modern Votan and Necromunda parts. It's on Instagram. Old linky link. 10 minutes away on my little bike from Whammy World. Is that only me that calls it that? Warhammer World. You know, the place with the rhino at the front. Yeah, I'll be razzing my bike up the canal, parking it and playing some games of an evening and of a weekend. I hope. A bunch of mates up there. It's going to be good. But I'm not going to be at a hobby. I'm going to take a handful of skirmishy stuff, a bit of Warcry, maybe some Necromunda, just because that's what people are playing. I haven't played Warcry since it came out, and Necromunda I have not played since it was Confrontation in White Dwarf in the early 90s, so that'll be different. What my mate Ed gave me. Yeah, so that smushed in amongst some Blood Bowl Elf High and Eagles, because I've been making a crew out of them. Crew? Warband? Gang? Retinue? For the, yet again, another old school game getting a bit of a resurgence at the Hackney area tabletop enthusiasts. Hate Club, Hate Club, Hate Club. As you can see, we are a legit hate organisation. You can tell by the sparkly rainbow stickers. Yeah, hate groups really wasn't really a term when 12, 13 years ago when I came up with that name and that logo a little while later. Oops. We're full of love. Robert Indiana joke, graphic design. Do you know him? Robert Indiana, Love. He did the O on the skew there. Rage Against the Machine used it also in one of their album covers. The Thirsting Blade. Yeah, sorry, The Thirsting Blade.